Business isn't about success, it's about winning. That means doing better than your competitors, even if it means bending the rules to get what you need. So when the City Council approved the zoning plan for some new luxury urban developments, you knew it was your time to shine. As the head of a real estate investment firm, it will take cunning moves, shrewd investing, and rubbing some elbows in order to leave your mark on the estates. In the estates, you begin the game with $12 million in checks and by arranging 24 randomly selected floor tiles in a grid just like this. Play proceeds in a clockwise order around the table with each player taking a single action until the game end is triggered. On your turn, before taking an action, you have the option of embezzling $1 million from your supply. All the money that you embezzle throughout the game is set aside and will add to your final score at the end of the game. Keep in mind that you will no longer be able to access this money, and since this is a closed economy game, this will have long-lasting ramifications to the overall spending power exhibited by all. Now, you will select one object to put up for auction. It is a once-around auction that begins with the player to your left and proceeds in order around the table. Each player will either raise the previous bid or pass. Once it arrives back to you, you have two options. You can either hand the object to the highest bidder, who will then pay you, or you can keep the object for yourself by paying the price set by the highest bidder. Whoever wins the object will immediately use it according to which object it is. If it is a floor cube, you will place it on the city grid. It can be placed on the leftmost space of any row, or adjacent to a previously placed cube. You cannot place floor cubes past the river on the board, since it hasn't yet been approved for development. You can place floor cubes on top of other previously placed cubes as long as the number of the one you are placing is lower than the one below it. If you place the first cube of any color, you'll also take the matching company certificate. You have staked your claim and you will receive the points that that company scores at the end of the game. Rooftops are placed on the top of any building without a rooftop. It completes the building so that no more floor cubes can be placed on it. Permits will shorten or extend the amount of spaces that can be developed in a row. The stripes will indicate how many spaces will be affected, and you will choose which row and whether to shorten or extend. You can even use permits on a row that was previously adjusted by another permit. The mayor is placed next to any row and will double the score of every building in that row at the end of the game. Finally, there's the cancel cube. This is the only object that can be discarded if the auction winner chooses so. It can also be used to cancel the effects of one permit already on the board. The game ends when it's impossible to complete any more buildings or as soon as two rows are filled with completed buildings. Then scoring commences. Every building in completed rows will score positive points, while buildings in incomplete rows score negative points. The building will score points for the player who holds the company certificate that matches the topmost floor cube in the building. That player will score for the sum of each cube in the building and the rooftop. Each check you embezzle throughout the game will also add 1 to your score, and the player with the most points is the winner. From the outset, you might think that the estates is about spending your money wisely, growing your investments, and making sure your companies do as well as possible. That is until someone extends a row with one of your high-value buildings, threatening you with a staggering amount of negative points. And just to add insult to injury, someone adds a mayor to that row, potentially doubling your losses. It's at that moment that you realize the estates isn't about scoring a lot of points. The estates is about scoring more points than your opponents. It's a subtle distinction, but one with huge ramifications. You could certainly try and sculpt the best, tallest sandcastle you can and hope you win the grand prize, or you can be more proactive, march over to your opponent's castle, kick it over, and laugh when you win because you're the last one standing. Quickly you realize that the estates is an excuse to bare your fangs. The estates lives in that nebulous space where you don't quite have full control over your fate, but you aren't quite a slave to it either. It's within this uneasy space that I find enjoyment. I don't feel coddled, but I don't feel like I'm in a free fall either. Most of the randomness is front-loaded in the setup, so the elements of change are the players themselves. My victory depends on how well I can play the system, and most importantly, how I read my opponents. At its best, the rules of the estates melt away and allow players to showcase their personalities. Are you an agent of chaos? Perhaps you'll forego controlling any companies at all and work to make them all score negative points at the end of the game. It's a legitimate strategy, and a deliciously cruel one at that. Or maybe you're a deal maker. You can collude with other players to build out a single road together with the promise of big points for all who join your scheme. Or perhaps you're more heavy-handed than that and force an opponent into your row with a well-timed auction win. It isn't just the beautiful presentation or the easy-to-follow rule set that makes the estates a joy to experience. It's the way that it takes every action and magnifies it through its systems. Every decision ripples throughout the game space and rocks the life rafts that every player is desperately clinging onto. Every exchange of money or placement of cube is felt immediately, leaving no space for meaningless turns. The estates isn't for the faint of heart, but if you're able to stomach the rocky waters, you'll be in for a heck of a voyage.